talking about cheese and charcuterie boards. They've gotten very popular over the quarantine, and I'm sure you've seen a million of them really beautifully done on the internet. And it looks like it's the kind of thing that's probably pretty difficult to put together. It takes a lot of experience. You have to be a foodie to do. But honestly, it's one of the easiest things to do. It's low skill, high impact. So you don't have to know how to cook. You don't have to know a ton about cheeses or meats. It's really easy to do, really easy to put together. So today I'm going to show you what you need to make a really beautiful cheese and charcuterie board and how to put it together. So for today, I have pecorino and manchego, which are both sheep's milk cheese. They're both hard cheeses. So it just happened to be that those are the cheeses that I ended up with. So you could pick any cheeses. Pick something you like. If you want to mix up and go with the stinky cheese, you know, get a gorgonzola dolce in there, or a nice soft cheese. A brie is great. The only thing about brie you have to be careful with is once it sits out, if the room is even slightly warm, it gets a little bit melty and it sticks together. So I don't like using brie for cheese and charcuterie boards, but that's just a personal preference. For meats today, we have prosciutto and salami. So again, just what we had at the Racquet Club. So I grabbed them from Chef Manny. I'm using cornichons, but if you don't have cornichons, and if you don't know what cornichons are, they're the tiny little pickles, they're adorable. But if you don't have cornichons, you can use olives, anything like that, just to break things up, to add a little bit of that saltiness, and to break up your board a little bit. We also have, in the nuts category, I have pecans. I say pecans. Do you say pecans? I don't know. I say pecans. So I have pecans, but honestly, this is, again, any nut will do. If you have walnuts, probably would steer clear from peanuts, but any of the bigger nuts are usually good, and you can do a really nice candied pecan that adds a lot of extra oomph from the holidays. But again, if we're just doing a basic cheese board, just grab some pecans. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. I also have rosemary. I really like working with rosemary in the holidays. It reminds me of Christmas trees. It smells great, and those greens really give the board a great look to finish it off. But you can use other fresh herbs if you have them on hand. I also have mission figs. So in place of that, you could use sliced strawberries, grapes. We're probably still going to use some strawberries and grapes depending on how much extra space we have, but just something a little sweet to balance out the savory that's going to be everywhere on the board. I also have, grab it here, I have an orange marmalade with malt whiskey. Again, I was using what we were working with, so any kind of jam, marmalade, things like that. You could get an onion relish. There's so many options. So that's the best part of this. You can go into the store. You know when you go into the store and you have a recipe and you have to find this exact thing? That's the best part of choosing a cheese and charcuterie board for entertaining, is it really doesn't matter. You can use whatever you find, whatever you like. Pick a couple cheeses, pick a couple meats. It's going to be great. So to make things a little bit easier, I've already cut up the cheeses and I cut up the meats. So I also forgot to mention I baked off a bunch of crostini. Again, I did that because I had a baguette on hand and it was easy for me. If not, you can grab crackers, you can grab anything you like. So that's the theme here. You can get anything you want. It's going to make a great cheese and charcuterie board, and I'm going to show you how to make it look really beautiful. So I'm going to change the camera angle so that you can look at the board while I'm putting it together, and I'll give you some tips on how to take all of these things and make it a really beautiful board. Okay, so I picked this board because, again, I happen to have it in the house, but you can get boards like this relatively inexpensively. You could really spend any amount of money on it. You can go to the Christmas tree shop and spend $8 on it, or you can go to Williams-Sonoma. There's a whole range of things out there, but this is just a wooden cutting board. It's got a copper handle. So you're going to want to start with your biggest items first, and the kind of the centerpiece of this whole thing, which is the cheeses and the meats. So I'm gonna start, as I had mentioned, I got pecorino and manchego. So what I like to do is make sure that the cheeses and the meats are either sliced differently or plated differently to really break up the look of it, and to, you know, it just makes it look nicer, and it distinguishes the kinds of cheese. You don't want your guests to kind of come back and be like, oh, did I like this one or did I like that one? If they look different, shouldn't be an issue. So the pecorino is a really hard Italian sheep's milk cheese, so it's kind of crumbly. So when I cut it up, I let it break naturally. So I'm going to kind of pile this up into a little pile here. We may adjust this a little as we go. Now the manchego, while it is also a harder sheep's milk cheese, and it looks a lot like pecorino, for being honest, I tried to keep these in more cubes to make it distinguishable from the pecorino. So I'm just going to kind of make a little bit of a neater pile here with the cubes of manchego, and then we will grab the meats. Let's see. Now, what's also nice about cheese and charcuterie is you don't have to, it's so easy to scale. You know, this is probably going to be a board that's probably appropriate for about 2 people, maybe 4, depending when it's all said and done. You can make it for a party. Just make more of it. I like the look of it being a little bit wild, so I took the prosciutto and kind of pulled it apart and made it, I like it kind of into a little pile here. So this makes it look a little bit, I think it gives it some visual interest. So I'm leaving spaces between the cheeses and the meats in order to fill it in with all the other good stuff. And I already took the salami, so the salami was sliced into coins, as you can sort of see. This was a particularly large salami. Sometimes you get them at the supermarket and they're smaller rolls. That wouldn't work with this, but it's sliced quite thin. And I just folded it over and folded it over again, and that gives that visual difference between the sort of messy, in a pile prosciutto and the neatly folded salami. So now we have our cheeses and our meats on the board. Now it's time to add a little bit more of our other things. So I'm going to put some crostini in here next, because that's our next biggest item. So I'm gonna take some of the crostini. Now what you could also do, if you can't fit as much of the crostini on your board as you want on there, you could always put it in a sort of a basket on the side in order to, you know, make that work. I'm actually gonna end up layering it right down the center here. So again, you could do this with crackers. I just, again, happen to make some crostini. If you want to make your own crostini and slice the baguette the same way that I did, all you have to do is slice it relatively equally. Brush each side with olive oil, sprinkle with a little sea salt, and roast. I roasted it at 450 for about 9 minutes to make it nice and crispy here. So I'm gonna end over here. Great. All right. So now we have all the big components. I'm gonna give us a little bit more separation here. Just makes everything else kind of come in a little bit easier. All right, so now let's get some of the pecans in here and the jam. So you don't need a ton of jam on here. People are gonna use it to spread on their crackers. So I have this really adorable little mini Moscow Mule mug. If you have a ramekin, a little souffle cup, if you have any of those things, you can absolutely use them. I just think this is cute because it matches the copper on the other thing. So I'm gonna put we'll put that right here. And we'll put the orange marmalade in that. I'm gonna wait to put the marmalade on in the very end because it could get a little messy and I just don't wanna be bothered with that. Yeah, so I have some pecans here. So actually, I'm gonna save those to sprinkle on after I do the rosemary, because I think there's a way to do that that's gonna end up being pretty cool. So I'm gonna take the mission figs and kind of add these in here between the salami and the manchego. Kind of create a nice little barrier there. There we go. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side except with cornichons. So I have a little pile of cornichons. Add that in here. Got a couple going rogue. It's fine. We'll get those back on the board. Okay. All right. All right. So that's all the main things. So now I'm going to take some scissors because I have these long pieces of rosemary and they just smell incredible. So some of the, I'm going to cut off the ends here. As you can see, it ends in a little bit of a, just doesn't look that nice. So I'm going to cut those off and kind of pin that in here. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I guess I am do like some symmetry here. So I'm going to take it and snip it into a couple different sections, smaller pieces to fill out where there's a little bit more space. And then also in between. So over here you can kind of see the colors just don't look that great butting up next to each other, but if you can add in a little bit of visual interest with the, there we go. And I have an idea now, so I'm going to kind of slide this over a little bit because I think we're going to line some pecans on the side as well. And just so you know, I'm totally winging this. So this is, again, this is what I was talking about, how easy this is. I had no real plan going into this, how we were going to do this. I just had the stuff and I figured we'll figure it out as we go. And we are. Okay. Just gonna put a little bit more in here. Don't love that piece. Another one over here. And kind of break up this. This one's less, you know. There we go. So we've got some space in here. And we have our pecans. So I'm gonna put some in a little pile here. Pile over. Oh, my pecorino's gone rogue. Some in a little pile over here. And again, my symmetry. A little bit over here. And a little bit more over here. Now, if you don't want to venture out to the grocery store, we do have some options in the house. We have, if you look on the takeout menu, we have an English cheese and charcuterie option, and we also have a grazing box option. So there's 2 meats and 2 cheeses, so a little bit different each, and you can decide what you like better. And it comes with crostini and house-made mustards and things like that. So you can do something like that with the stuff from the Racquet Club. And it goes toward your minimum, which is always good. All right, so I do have a little bit more of the rosemary, so I'm just gonna kind of fill in the edges here. Just kind of keep it looking nice. Another thing that's always really nice to work with is cranberries. This time of year, the cranberries and the rosemary look really awesome together. All right, I'm going to, there we go. I'm gonna add some of the marmalade to our little jar here. Okay. Okay, there we go. There it's going in. All right. Now, I it doesn't really look like it needs the grapes and the strawberries, but if you wanted to, I mean, you could fill in some of the other areas around it. This is kind of a smaller board, so, you know, wing it, like I've been advocating. Just wing it, make it look nice. It styles really easily. Pick anything you want, things that you enjoy eating. Don't, you know, forget the rules. Just make it look nice. And here we have it. So we have our, oh, got a rogue pecan, there we go. We have our cheese and charcuterie board. And it was super easy to do. Took how long, really, you know? And it looks great. So there you have it. As promised, a super easy cheese and charcuterie board using whatever ingredients you find and you want to work with, and in record time. Wrap that in cellophane and you can take it anywhere and wow your friends and family. So if you have questions about anything that we talked about, or if you'd like to make an order of any of the cheese and charcuterie that we have at the Racquet Club, just send me an email at Katelynn@rcop.com, and we're happy to help.